Welcome back to Never Enough Novels. It is time to pick out my March TBR using my TBR jar. I have about 40 prompts in here that I'm going to use throughout the year, and I typically pick out 3 each month. If you need ideas for your own TBR jars, I'm going to put a link down below to a blog post that I did which has over 50 ideas to include in your own TBR jars, so hopefully that will be helpful if you need some new ideas. I also have my TBR cart over here, so this is where I keep all of the physical books on my TBR that I haven't read yet, but I'm hoping to read soon. So I'm going to use these as my inspiration for whichever prompts come out of here. I also have my Kindle because there's a few books on here that I want to get to as well. I actually started using Kindle Unlimited this month. I signed up for the free trial. I think I've already read like 4 or 5 books so far, and I am absolutely loving the selection, and I have a bunch more downloaded that I want to get to, so I might pick 1 or 2 of these as well. If you haven't tried Kindle Unlimited, I'm going to put the link down below as well, because they usually offer at least a month or sometimes up to 2 or 3 months of a free trial, and they have so many good like romance and fantasy and thriller authors and books on here that it's absolutely worth trying out. So I was just thinking, I never actually do follow-ups to these TBR jar videos. So if you're interested in seeing like a check-in with whether I actually read the books that I picked or what I thought of them, just let me know in the comments and maybe I can throw that into my routine as well. But let's jump into my first pick for March and see which prompt comes out. All right, this one says, a book that a friend recommended. Okay, that's kind of interesting because it's not actually based on like the title or the cover or some physical aspect of the book. Let's see. So a lot of my friend book recommendations come from people on the internet that I know and love. I love my like Bookstagram community, so I'm probably going to be going with something that they recommended. Actually, you know what? On my Kindle, so I did a poll over on Instagram just a couple of days ago because I was trying to pick between 3 different books from Kindle Unlimited that I want to try. And one of them was Bridesmaid for Hire, and that actually got picked as the one recommended by most people. So I'm going to say that that's an option for this prompt this month. So Bridesmaid for Hire is by Megan Quinn. So she's one of my favorite like contemporary romance, spicy romance authors. And I actually read the second book in this little Bridesmaid series, and I loved it. It was so funny, like full of really great banter and characters. So I wanted to go back and read the first book at some point. So this first book is called Bridesmaid for Hire. Let me quickly look up the summary of it. It focuses on Maggie Mitchell, who owns her own event planning business, and she is off on vacation in Bora Bora when she happens to run into Brody, who is her brother's best friend, and these two have not gotten along like their entire lives. But while Maggie is on vacation, she realizes that Brody is there for his boss's daughter's wedding, and it turns out this wedding is kind of a disaster. So Maggie, with her event planning experience, kind of wants to help and maybe like get her name out there a little bit and maybe get some business while she's actually on vacation. So she agrees to like help, but she has to pose as Brody's girlfriend in order to kind of get into what's going on. So now there's like an enemies to lovers, brother's best friend, and fake dating scenario going on. So I love all of those tropes, and like Megan Quinn does such a great job with different tropes. So I think this would be a really fun read, especially since we're still in winter. I could really use an escape to Bora Bora and just some like fun wedding planning disasters and problems and solutions going on. So that seems like it'd be a really fun option for right now. Again, that was called Bridesmaid for Hire. Let's see, what else could I do? Okay. I'm gonna pick this one. So this is Haunting Adeline. If you haven't heard of this, this is often recommended as like one of the best books if you're interested in dark romance. So I've kind of started exploring that genre recently. I read Lights Out by Navessa Allen because I just happened to see it at Barnes & Noble one day and I was really intrigued by the cover, and I've like seen it different places. So I picked it up, actually listened to it on audiobook and loved it. It was 5 stars, one of my favorite books of the year. I'm sure it's going to end up as like the male main character was just so funny and adorable and like self-conscious, along with being like the stalker and masked man. It was like such a weird combo, but worked so well. So now I'm interested in like seeing what else is out there. And Haunting Adeline is always highly recommended as like a great book for people getting into dark romance. So it has that stalker aspect. They kind of like play a game of cat and mouse, and it's definitely got some like, it's a heavy trigger warning list and a lot of spicy scenes and things going on that you would not normally find in contemporary romances. But I'm like intrigued because so many people love this, and it's like one of the most highly recommended dark romance books. So we've got dark romance versus like a very cute contemporary romance. So which one should I choose? Obviously, let me know in the comments if you guys have preferences. I really want to read this, but I'm also really in the mood for just like a lighthearted, fun vacation romance. So I think I'm gonna pick Bridesmaid for Hire for my prompt as like which book a friend recommended this month. I think it'll be a quick read too, which is good because I have to decide if I want to keep going with Kindle Unlimited after it expires, I think in like 2 weeks. So I probably can get through that one pretty quickly. So, all right, so I'm officially gonna go with Bridesmaid for Hire for this prompt of the book that a friend recommended. Okay, let's see what is next for my second prompt of the month. Okay, a book with girl, lady, or woman in the title. So one of those specific words. I feel like there was a big push in publishing, especially with thrillers recently, to have like girl or woman in the title of a book. So I thought that was a really interesting prompt when I saw it and added it in here. But now let's see if I actually have any books that meet that requirement. So, okay, here's one. All right, this is called The Final Girl Support Group. And actually I just had someone recommend this to me not very long ago. So this book is a thriller. I feel like that makes sense with this prompt. That's kind of what I was going for. And it's about final girls. So if you haven't heard of like this term before in movies or books sometimes, final girls are like the last woman standing after some sort of like massacre or murder event. Basically, they are either left alone or escaped or somehow managed to not be murdered. So the premise of this book is that these 6 final girls get together as like a support group to deal with their trauma. And something happens though, and one of the women in the group goes missing. And all of a sudden they realize that someone knows about this group and is basically determined to rip their lives apart again. Not only did these girls have to go through like unimaginable circumstances however long ago, now they're being hunted down once again and finding themselves in like these terrifying situations where they don't know who's coming for them or why or whether they're going to survive. So this sounds like a really intriguing thriller. I like the concept that they're kind of taking all these women who have survived, crazy experiences before and now are once again fighting for their lives. So I'm looking through the books on here and I don't see any other ones that meet that prompt. So maybe it's not as common as I thought. I do have, I have Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. So it's not really officially girl, woman, or lady, but it's got a she in there. So that could be an option too. I know this is one of her older thrillers. Let's see, Ellie Mack was the perfect daughter, and then she was gone. 10 years after Ellie's disappearance, her mother is trying to put her life back together when she meets a charming man in a cafe. But when she meets Floyd's daughters, his youngest, Poppy, takes Laurel's breath away because she's the spitting image of Ellie. So now she's kind of bringing up all these questions again about where did Ellie go, like what actually happened to her, and why does this girl look shockingly familiar? I had heard just really good things about this thriller as well, which is why I bought it a while ago, but I just haven't actually got around to reading it. So I've got 2 interesting thrillers here then. One about final girls, one about a girl that has gone missing and maybe shows up again somewhere. So these are pretty similar. This is going to be a tough choice. Maybe because I just recently bought this and someone recently recommended it, I think I'm going to pick The Final Girl Support Group. I know Grady Hendrix has another book that just recently came out about like witches or something like that, which also was interesting. So I want to get to know this author better and see if I like the style of writing, because there's a few other books that I might want to get into then as well. So all right, I'm going to officially say The Final Girl Support Group is going to be my choice for this prompt. Okay, last one for March then. Let's see what I get next. This prompt is, a book in a series. All right, that should be a little bit easier to figure out. All right, so the one that jumps out right away is King of Wrath. This was another recent bookstore purchase. This would actually be a reread, but I love Anna Huang so much, and her King of Sins series, this is the first book in that series, has been really fun. So each book focuses on a different deadly sin, and they're all kind of morally gray men. And she's still writing the series. I think she only has 4 or 5 books out, but I decided I wanted to collect them all because I adore the covers, and these books have been so amazing so far. So in the first book, it focuses on Dante Russo, who is a billionaire CEO, very typical for Anna Huang. And he is fully like in control of his life, never plans to marry until he's threatened with blackmail to become engaged to a woman that he barely knows, which is Vivian. So Vivian is an heiress and daughter of like Dante's newest enemy, because this guy is now blackmailing him. So he has no interest in Vivian, and Dante is just planning to do everything in his power to destroy this blackmail and their betrothal. But now that he has her, he can't bring himself to let her go. So I love that he is basically a reluctant male main character. Like, he had no interest in getting married and like being in a relationship, and his whole thing throughout this book is just like he just wants to get revenge. Like, he's the king of wrath. But Vivian like totally gets under his skin in the best ways, and seeing their relationship develop from like strangers to something more was so satisfying, and I just adored it so much. But I want to like go back and reread the series now that more books are coming out, so that's why this was like high on my TBR again. All right, the next book that I'm going to pick for a book in a series is called Go Luck Yourself by Sarah Rash. So this book is coming out in March. Oh, so soon. Oh, that makes sense with St. Patrick's Day. The first book was called The Nightmare Before Christmas, which just came out last year. And the concept of this series is pretty intriguing because it focuses on these families who are responsible for different holidays. So there's kind of like a magical realism element. And in the first book, we meet the Prince of Christmas and the Prince of Halloween. And both of their families are like enemies. So Christmas is trying to basically get all of the power or all of the joy in the world because they just want to like be more powerful. And Halloween isn't having it. So the two families would never really got along. So in that book, the Prince of Halloween comes to stay with like the Christmas family in order to kind of like mend relations, but also like dig for more information. So the two princes are supposed to be enemies, but there's definitely a connection there, and they kind of like secretly fall in love and are trying to figure out this situation that has much bigger impact overall on the world and the holidays. So in this book, Go Luck Yourself, we get more interaction with like the second son of Christmas, and he meets the Prince of St. Patrick's Day. So I think these two they meet at college and are constantly clashing, don't get along. So I think there's going to be similar like enemies to lovers vibes with this one. But I'm really excited to see how St. Patrick's Day fits in because they weren't really mentioned at all in the first book. And obviously with it being March, it feels very fitting for the time of year. So it's kind of like a quirky love story with just like a little bit of that magical element that throws in, just some intriguing aspects. It's kind of fun to see where she takes the story. And her love stories so far have been really cute, and like you're totally rooting for these characters to get together. So I think this will be another like adorable story. Between these two, this is a pretty tough choice because this is like a reread that I know I'll love versus like a very applicable holiday romance. I don't know. If you have opinions, let me know in the comments. I can't really decide between these two. Maybe I'll read both. We'll see. This one is an advanced reading copy, so a huge thank you to Bramble for sending this my way. So like I do have to get to it so that I can actually review it. So maybe I'll, try and read this sometime soon that I can actually get a review up. But isn't this cover just so cute too? Like this is one that you just want on your bookshelves. And I think the actual version has sprayed edges, like green sprayed edges, which is really exciting. So, all right, I'm tentatively picking this one, but we'll see. Maybe I'll read this one too. Okay, so that wraps up my March TBR. Thank you for hanging in here. Let me know for any of these prompts, which book you would pick that you have on your TBR. I always am interested in seeing what you guys are reading as well. And make sure you hit like and subscribe to this video so you can see more of my TBR jar picks and book recommendations in the future. And then I will see you next month.